It's a blessing to be able to stand before you, to be able to have our families rejoice in this wonderful weather. We received beautiful reports of Aviv conditions throughout the land, increasing day by day. It's a blessing to be able to see the earth renew itself, and so let us even rededicate ourselves to the worship of on this holy Shabbat day. Let us sing of thy wondrous works. We will tell on page 2. The heavens declare it, the glory is the earth in beauty, souls on earth how we are creating We give you thanks, Elohim, for the revelation of the portion of Tsaw, the portion where we saw all of the operations of the Kahuna, of the Kohanim order, oh God, that you revealed in plain sight, because we have no mystery religion. You made it clear how we approach you with thanks, when we feel ashamed, when we feel guilty, when we feel sinful, when we are celebrating a feast day, when we have a vow. unto you, O Yah. You gave us a complete way of life. And we ask that you would return us to be able to see that in action, O Yah. That we would be able to use all 5 senses in our worship, not only limited to our prayers and in our readings and our life's experiences, but that we would actually see your cloud of glory accept our worship at the time of our prayers, O Yah, in your holy temple. May it be your will that you would accept the words of worship that we have, the psalms that we have on record, the words of the prophets and the writings that are recited in the afternoon by various teachers and speakers, and even that the words of their lips and the meditations of their hearts would be acceptable before you, and that you would establish within us, again, the ability to speak, and it will be. Even as you created us in your image and in your likeness, you are the one who spoke, and it was, O God. Blessed be your name, high and lifted up, now and forevermore. Hallelujah! 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 You're high! You're high! You're high! Let us sing the Shema. O Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah Elohim, Yahuwah Elohim, Yahuwah Elohim, O Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah Elohim, Elohim, Yahuwah Elohim, O Baruch Shemino, Sole Ola, Sole Ola, Sole Ola, O Baruch Shemino, Sole Ola, Please have a seat as we even enter into our prayers. It's found in the book of Psalms, the 79th, 121st, 124th, and 148th chapters. We're going to have a good mixture this afternoon. We'd like to start out with Akhot Yirmiyahu on Psalm 79. 121st Psalm, we would like our brother Netanyahu. For the 124th Psalm, our sister Shlomit. And then Ach Israel for the 148th. Hallelujah.
Shabbat Shalom L'Kol.
Shabbat Shalom Leka.
One thing I have to ask is that I could dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Amen.
Thank you, Yah, to be in His holy temple this day to give thanks into His name. I'll lead you all in the 79th Tehillim. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
O Yah, the heathen are come into thy inheritance. They have defiled thy holy temple. They have made Jerusalem into heaps.
They have given the dead bodies of thy servants to be food unto the fowls of the heavens, the flesh of thy holy ones unto the beasts of the earth.
They have shed their blood like water round about Jerusalem with none to bury them.
We are become a taunt to our neighbors, a scorn and derision to them that are round about us.
How long, O Yah, will thou be angry forever?
Amen.
How long will thy jealousy burn like fire?
Pour out thy wrath upon the nations that know thee not, and upon the kingdoms that call not upon thy name.
For they have devoured Yaakov and laid waste his habitation.
Remember not against us the iniquities of our forefathers, that thy compassion speedily come to meet us, for we are brought very low.
Help us, O Yah of our salvation, for the sake of the glory of thy name, and deliver us, and forgive our sins for thy name's sake.
Wherefore should the nations say, where is their power? That the avenging of thy servants' blood that is shed, Be made known among the nations in our sight.
Let the groaning of the prisoner come before thee. According to the greatness of thy power, set free those that are appointed to death.
And render unto our neighbors sevenfold into their bosom their reproach wherewith they have reproached thee, O Yah.
So we, that are thy people, in the flock of thy pasture, we will give thanks unto thee forever. We will tell of thy praise to all generations.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
We are not new Amka with zone Maiteka. No day Laka, the Olam, the door, with Nisapir, to Hilatecha. Thank you, Yehovah, for the opportunity to speak before him and this great people, Israel. Thank y'all for the substance that we receive in these four walls, the energy that the Kohanim bring forth, the morning, the people, because the things that we are receiving is really preparing us for what lies ahead. And I pray that we'll be able to take this good energy to combat anything that may come our way. Because we have the power within ourselves to destroy all the evil in this world. We have to be able to activate it. We have to have the positive thinking, as Kohen mentioned earlier today. Taught out from my brother Ben Boaz with his Mamtir portion, words of truth that he spoke. It's good when we can see our people from near and far, my brother Israel, blessing us with his presence. Thankful for the elders and the Yeladim and the children and just everybody. And a special blessing to Maisha, who's carrying our fourth child at this time. And as the time slowly approach, I pray for a healthy baby, a child that will fear and serve the Creator all the days of his or her life, and that we can really take our position in this world and do what we need to do. Let's go, Israel. Shabbat Shalom.
The 121st Psalm of Netanya.
Nah, I'm not going to turn the camera around.
So please.
Shabbat Shalom, Nicole. I will lift up mine eyes unto the mountains. From whence shall my help come?
My help cometh from Jehovah, who made heaven and earth.
He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber.
Behold, he that keepeth Israel does not neither slumber nor sleep.
Jehovah is thy keeper. Jehovah is thy shade upon thy right hand.
The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night.
Yah shall keep thee from all evil. He shall keep thy soul.
Jehovah shall guard thy going out and thy coming in, from this time forth and forever.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
This psalm reminding us of that the Creator gives us the breath of life. The Creator is with us in our going out and our coming in, waking us up every morning and allowing us to go back to sleep every night. And I think in life sometimes we get caught up thinking that we're living life for the approval of one another. But we have to remember that we're here seeking the approval and the glory of the Creator alone. We are vessels that are supposed to be living for the Creator's will. And for those that want to accept us, they will. For those that won't. Just like Dawid and Michal, even if you praise the Creator with all your might, you still might have people that might not accept you. So remember that we are here living our life for the Creator's glory and for the Creator's acceptance, not for one another. Shabbat Shalom.
124th Psalm, the Horah Shalomit.
If it had not been Yehovah who was for us, let Israel not say.
If it had not been Jehovah who was for us, when men rose up against us,
Then they had swallowed us up alive, when their wrath was kindled against us.
then the waters had overwhelmed us, the stream had gone over our soul.
Then the proud waters had gone over our soul.
Blessed be Jehovah, who has not given us as a prey to their teeth.
Our soul is escaped as a bird out of the snare of the fowler. The snare is broken and we are escaped.
Our help is in the name of Jehovah, who made heaven and earth.
Amen.
I just want to thank the Most High for allowing everybody to be here today and allowing us to be safe throughout the week and being able to rest on the Holy Shabbat day. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
148th Psalm,
Hallelujah. First and foremost, giving all thanks and praise to the supreme intellect of the universe, the power of our forefathers, the power of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, great mighty, very most high God. Giving due respect to the dignitaries here present, Cohen, Tsaw, Zakwanim, Imas, mothers. I bid you all to the tongue of our ancient forefathers, Shabbat Shalom, Lekam. The 148th Psalm, Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Praise ye Jehovah from the heavens, praise him in the heights.
Praise him, all his angels. Praise him, all his hosts.
Praise ye him, sun and moon. Praise him, all you stars of light.
Praise him, ye heavens of heavens, and ye waters that are above the heavens.
Let them praise the name of Jehovah, for he commanded and they were created.
He has also established them forever and ever. He has made a decree which shall not be transgressed.
Praise Jehovah from the earth, ye sea monsters and all deeps.
Fire and hail, snow and vapor, stormy wind fulfilling his word.
Mountains and all hills, fruitful trees and all cedars.
Beasts and all cattle, creeping things and winged fowl.
Kings of the earth and all peoples, princes and all judges of the earth.
Both young men and maidens, old men and children.
Let them praise the name of Jehovah, for his name alone is exalted. His glory is above the earth and heaven.
And lifted up a horn for his people, a praise for all his holy ones, even for the children of Israel, a people near unto him. Hallelujah.
Once again, giving all thanks and praise to the Most High King, Akhot. This is my first time in this establishment. It's been a long journey. I've been here 7 years since I've been in Charlotte. It's been a long time. I'm glad and thankful to the Most High that I'm even allowed to even get here in safety and in peace, even on the highways and byways, because there are a lot of crazy drivers, especially in Virginia. But for the most part, I'm thankful. I'm thankful to even see all of your faces in here. As you can see, my smile, it won't diminish, but at the end of the day, I love you all, and always thank you for welcoming me to this house of the Most High.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
At this time, we're going to have the word of the week.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
All right, so this weekend we're going to do it a little bit differently. So I am going to ask Aharon if you can stand up, and I'm going to ask Tabia. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the word without the definition. I will say the word to you, and just based on how it sounds, I want you to tell me what you think it means. Okay? All right. So the word is pulchritude. Oh. Pulchritude. All right. So, oh no. Pulchritude. All right. So, Tabia. Pulchritude.
I think it means
Yes. It's a very old word. You probably won't see that often. It's a Latin word, so if you don't know it, it's okay. I just want from how it sounds, you think it means.
I think it means something like
I didn't hear you.
I think it means something like a good person.
Okay, so she thinks it means a good person.
Nice.
Tyrone, who do you think it means?
Pulchritude, the Latin word pulchere, meaning love.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to show you the pictures, and I want you, everybody, to focus on the names, not just the pictures. All right? Focus on the names, not just the pictures. And then I'm going to ask those same two people to stand up again and tell me what they think the word means. Okay. That's Yosef.
Beautiful.
Sarah. That was for Shakira. She's not in here. L. That's the last one. I think it's Steve Davis, right?
Yeah. That's the last one.
And you have to.
Oh, I'm free.
You'll have to.
No. You don't think they need it?
Okay, so I'm gonna ask, did you take a good look at all the pictures that came across the screen on your own? Okay, are you kidding? What'd you say? That's Shoshana? Oh, we didn't see King. I don't know All right, so Aharon, do you want to change what your definition is?
I would say, like, love about yourself.
Okay. Self-love. Whole pursuit means self-love. Talia, after looking at the pictures.
I think the same thing, but also someone who did the right thing.
Okay. So they're thinking about what character traits. She said somebody that did the right thing.
Yeah.
All right. Actually, the word means simply beautiful. And the recorders of the Tanakh, these are most often we talk about the character traits in the Tanakh, but the phrase, not the framers, but the people who recorded the Tanakh, they attributed a lot. They characterized those people as being extreme, like beyond beautiful.
Okay.
Every person that I listed, if you look back through it, you can see that they always talk about they were very handsome, optional. That doesn't necessarily have to do with your inner traits, because optional wasn't nice, but he was fine. That's how they defined him. He had a lot of hair, he was very handsome. So, if you were to use it in a sentence, pulchritudinous, you would say, we were in awe of the pulchritudinous bride. Okay, so it's usually somebody that's beyond. All right, we're in the week. So now.
Great, excellent, excellent. So everybody again, expanding our vocabulary and our biblical literacy at the same time. At this time, let us rise up to sing. We have a special selection I'm going to choose because we have 1 month till Pesach. So let's sing Go Down Moses. It's on page 14. Start eating that homage. Don't buy any more cereal. Eat up that bread. You got 4 weeks.
Count.
We're doing the live drummer friendly. When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand. Let my people go down. Moses way down in Egypt's land. Pharaoh, let my people go. Let my people go. Not out my Oh, time to talk. Because we have a treat this afternoon. We're going to have fun tonight. Israel was the eagle's man. Press so hard it couldn't stand. Go down. Appreciate you vibing with me on that. Seriously, it's a blessing that we are only a month away from our Holy Season. So much more of that. At this time, with great fanfare and adoration, let us receive our speaker of the afternoon, our Akhot, Kamaniyah, the daughter of Tsaw Afternoon. Your heart, your heart, your heart.
Shabbat shalom.
Is it on? Plug in. Click it on.
How is everybody doing? So, what happens when you get told less than a week before, well, I shouldn't say told, asked. I was asked less than a week before to do the entire book of Esther, all 10 chapters. You end up with pages and pages of notes. So, I thank the Most High for life today and for the opportunity and the wisdom to try to interpret this story the best that I can. And I think many of you are familiar with it. If not, you're in for a treat because this story has everything. It's got wealth, it's got power, it's got arrogance, it's got greed, murder, plot twists, heroes, villains, all of that.
All of them.
That we're going to go through today. So, As pulchritude? Yes, it does have pulchritude. Hold on for that. All right, so let's get started. We're going to start in chapter 1, verse 1 of the book of Esther. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this Ahasuerus, who reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 127 provinces, that in those days, when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the castle, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the army of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of provinces being before him.
So, okay, oh no, go ahead, read through verse 4, sorry about that.
When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty, many days, even 180 days.
Right, so we are in the Persian kingdom right now, and like he said, it's from India even unto Ethiopia. So, Maureen, if you can show that picture just to give you a sense of the vastness of the Persian kingdom. All the way, like the book says, from India down into what was Ethiopia at the time. I think it's modern day Eritrea right now. But all of this was the Persian kingdom. So we were taken away into captivity by the Babylonians. The Babylonians had their time to reign, and they were conquered by the Persians. So this is all of the Persian Empire as far as it extended. So we're scattered throughout all of this land. And the king at the time is Ahasuerus, and he's got all of this wealth and all of this kingdom. So he's basically celebrating and having this huge feast. Like he said, 180 days, that's 6 months. So they just celebrating and showing off for 6 months. Can you imagine partying for 6 months? But yeah, that's what they're doing right now. It's just partying and showing off.
How many people survived?
And when these days were fulfilled, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the castle, both great and small, 7 days, in the court of the garden of the king's palace.
So after he finishes celebrating for the 6 months with all of his kingdom, then he has a separate party for the people that work for him. So for a whole nother week, all of his servants get to celebrate and partake in all of this celebration. And when they mention Shushan, they're going to say Shushan the castle, but it really is the city, like the capital of the Persian kingdom. And it's kind of like, in my mind, I was thinking of it like when you hear about the Vatican or Vatican City. It's like a municipality unto itself. It's a city, but it's also the Vatican enclosed in it. So think of Shushan as kind of being the same, where it's the castle and then the surrounding city as well.
There were hangings of white, fine cotton, and blue, bordered with cords of fine linen and purple, upon silver rods and pillars of marble.
Does that sound familiar? Kind of sounds like a tabernacle.
The couches were of gold and silver, upon a pavement of green and white and shell and onyx marble. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance, according to the bounty of the king.
So basically, I mean, they are just expressing the level of wealth that we have here. I mean, just the floors are made of marble, and you know, the couches are gold. Just an enormous amount of wealth that I can't even imagine. And it's so much so that the gold cups, there's not even two alike. Here, you know, now people try to match everything, right? Back then, they had cups that were completely different from each other. No two were alike.
And the drinking was according to the law. None did compel, for so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure.
And that basically means that everybody drank as much as they want. As little as you want, without any pressure, and as much as you want. There was like an unlimited bar, right? Open bar. You just drink as much as you want.
Also, Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to the king Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Bazita, Harbona, Bigta, and Abagta, Zetar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that ministered in the presence of Ahasuerus the king.
So, okay, one more verse.
To bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look upon. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by the chamberlain. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him.
So, we're on the last day of the feast, and the king decides that he wants to call his wife, basically to parade around in front of his friends with her crown. And so, she's in the middle of having her own party, right? Sisterhood power. And she doesn't want to leave. She's like, I'm in the, don't make me get up and interrupt the party that I'm having with my friends, because she knows him, right? So his heart is merry, he's drunk. She probably knows he's drunk. She's probably drunk. And so she has a little bit of an attitude. And she's like, what, I know why he's calling me over there. He wants to treat me like one of his possessions, like these, diverse cups that he's showing everybody. He wants to show me off to everybody. And she's not having any of it. So she refuses to come. So of course, his chamberlains come back empty-handed, and he's angry and he's embarrassed. He sent a commandment, and in this culture in particular, so this isn't our culture, this is Persian culture, and everything that the king commands is law. It's not like our law that comes from the Most High. The king's commandment is law. So he basically commanded her to come, and she refused him. So that is a huge deal that she defied his commandment.
Then the king said to the wise men who knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshina, Setar, Admata, Tarshish, Meresh, Marsina, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, who saw the king's face and sat first in the kingdom. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to law? For as much as she hath not done the bidding of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains.
This is where we start seeing what I think is the weakness of Ahasuerus as a king. So throughout this whole book, there's going to be a lot of instances where he relies a lot on other people to make decisions, big decisions for him in the way that he rules. A lot of over-dependence on other people. So this is the first instance where he's already saying to them, about his own wife, what am I supposed to do with her?
And Memucan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen hath not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes, and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. For this deed of the queen will come abroad unto all women to make their husbands contemptible in their eyes, when it will be said, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. And this day will the princesses of Persia and Media, who have heard of the deed of the queen, say the like unto all the king's princes. So will there arise enough contempt and wrath.
So they're concerned about this going beyond just this one single instance, right? She's the highest level woman in the whole kingdom. So her position is very visible, and they're worried that, every other woman in the kingdom, seeing her defy the king, is going to do the same thing. So it goes beyond just this one instance because of the level of influence that she's going to have on everybody else.
If it please the king, let there go forth a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the lords of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and that the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. And when the king's decree which he shall make shall be published throughout all his kingdom, great though it be, all the wives will give to their husbands honor, both to great and small.
You can keep going.
Moving along. It's the line. And when the king's decree, which
You read over it. 21.
And the word pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. For he sent letters unto all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and speak according to the language of his people.
So, just like that, based on the opinion of one man in his cabinet, so to speak, he decided the fate of his wife with just that one person making that one suggestion. There was no conversation about it. He's probably still drunk. But yeah, just like that, her fate was decided by one person. And at this point in time is where they established that the husband is the head of the household.
After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was assuaged, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what was decreed against her. Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, let there be sought for the king young virgins fair to look on, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan the castle, to the house of the women, unto the custody of Hagi, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their ointments be given them, and let the maiden that pleaseth the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so.
Okay, so after he's finally calmed down and sobered up, he realizes that he doesn't have a queen, right? What kind of king am I and I don't have a queen? So once again, he's relying on, his servants that make the suggestion. He does not come up with this on his own. For him to gather all of the young virgins into the castle, I interpreted that as kidnapping. So basically, they're just taking every single young woman. I mean, probably don't want to go, but this is what they're decreeing as law for everybody across the kingdom, to basically give up these young virgins for him to pick one to be his wife. And they're put into the custody of the king's chamberlain, to be the keeper of the women. And since he's a man, kings don't just hand over their women to another man. So he's probably either, of the other persuasion, or, had some things taken care of in his, downstairs. And so there's no concern with him messing with any of the women. So he's the one that's taking care of all the women that are coming into this house.
There was a certain Judite in Shushan the castle.
So, sleek guy, he's actually not a Judite.
Yeah, he's a Benjamite. Right?
Okay, so he's an Israelite.
Yeah, okay. There was a certain Israelite in Shushan the castle, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Yair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captives that had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Yehuda, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away, and he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. The maiden was of beautiful form and fair to look on. And when her father and mother were dead, Mordecai took her for his own daughter.
So she was his cousin, who was an orphan. Her parents died when she was probably very young, and he took her in and raised her as his own. And they're part of this scattering of the nation of Israel throughout the kingdoms, left when we got carried away by the king of Babylon, and of course now part of the Persian Empire. So that's how they ended up, kind of gives kind of that backstory on how they ended up where they are. And as Cohen Sheikh Meow was saying, in the chronology or the genealogy of him, they say that he's, the son of Shimi, the son of Kish, a Benjamite, and Kish was the father of our first king Saul. So there's some relation there, distant cousin kind of relationship there between Mordecai and King Saul.
So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was published, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the castle, to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was taken into the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the women. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him. And he speedily gave her ointments with her portion, and the 7 maidens who were meet to be given her out of the king's house. And he advanced her and her maidens to the best place in the house of the women.
So we got more excess on top of excess. The maidens have maidens. So each of them get their own 7 maidens, and they like the number 7 here too. But just a lot of excess again, that he's got all these maidens in the house, and then they all have other women waiting on them as well while they're spending this time. And she's gained favor with Haggai, probably because she was raised really well by Mordecai. She's a very humble sister, and that gains her favor with him elevating her to the best part of the house.
Esther had not made known her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not tell it. And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house to know how Esther did and what would become of her.
He's naturally very protective of her, wants to make sure she's okay, and he also wants to make sure that, because they're a minority in this foreign land, that he wants her to keep a low profile. They're different from everybody else. And he's telling her, don't, tell who you are, don't talk about your relationship to me, just try to kind of keep a low profile.
Now, when the turn of every maiden was come to go into King Ahasuerus, after that it had been done to her according to the law of the women 12 months, for so were the days of their anointing accomplished, to wit, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with other ointments of the women. And when then the maidens came unto the king, whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of the house of the women unto the king's house. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned unto the second house of the women, to the custody of Shaashgaz, the king's chamberlain, who kept the concubines. She came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and she were called by name.
So we have more what I see as objectification of women, and basically they are spending a whole year simply for the purpose of preparing their bodies for the king's pleasure. That's funny how this is. Y'all can get a different perspective. So yeah, I mean, they stay there for a whole year just to lay around in perfume and oil. That's what it says. So that they can go there for one night and then go to a second house. So they don't even go back home. You know, he's taking all these women and they're pleasing him or whatever, and then they just spend the rest of their time, because they can't go back to anybody else, right? And that's where they are until whatever. So it's an interesting culture.
Now, when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go in unto the king, she required nothing but what Haggai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all of them that looked upon her.
She was smart. She knew that Haggai would do what the king liked. So instead of trying to figure it out or do what she thought he would like, she asked him, and he was like, oh yeah, so the ones that do this get called back. And she did what she felt was going to be necessary to be pleasing in the king's eyes.
So Esther was taken unto King Ahasuerus into his house royal in the 10th month, which is the month Tebet, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release to the provinces and gave gifts according to the bounty of the king.
So she gets selected to be the queen. This is in the 7th year in his reign. When we started the story, it was in the 3rd year of his reign. So it took 4 years from when that party was happening until he found a new queen.
And when the virgins were gathered together the 2nd time, and Mordecai sat in the king's gate, Esther had not yet made known her kindred nor her people as Mordecai had charged her. For Esther did commandment of Mordecai, like as when she was brought up with him. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, 2 of the king's chamberlains, Bigtan and Teresh, of those that kept the door, were wrought and sought to lay hands on the king Ahasuerus. And the thing became known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther, the queen. And Esther told the king thereof in Mordecai's name. And when inquisition was made of the matter, and it was found to be so, they both hanged on a tree. And it was written in the book of the Chronicles before the king.
All right, so we got a lot in here. Verse 19, when the virgins were gathered together the 2nd time. So Ahasuerus is being greedy again, and he's gone through a 2nd round of gathering virgins from the kingdom. Not to be queen, but another round of the same thing that he did the first time. So while this is happening, we also learn that Mordecai is a servant of the king, so he works there. You know, he's inside the gate, and you'll kind of see throughout the portion that when you're inside the gate, you are a servant of the king. So he's inside the gate, he's a person that works there, and that's how he happens to overhear what these other 2 servants of the king are plotting against him, and he overhears that. My theory around why they were plotting against him is because he keeps taking all the women. Y'all? So I think they felt some kind of way about that and decided to, you know, take him out. And Mordecai caught wind of it, and they decided to, you know, he overheard this, made sure he got word to Esther. She told the king. They went to their own little version of internal affairs, had an investigation, and figured out that this was true, and then hanged them up.
After these things did King Ahasuerus promise Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him, and all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed down and prostrated themselves before Haman.
So Ahasuerus promoted Haman, not promised him, and this is going to be, so this is about, it's going to say later on that it's 12 years, in the 12th year. So now we're 9 years after the start of the story. And when we started with the story and he had those 7 princes with him, Haman's name isn't mentioned. So he's not part of that crew of people that are close to him at the beginning of the story. So now it's 9 years later and he's basically worked his way up so that now he's above all of the princes in the land. So I think it shows his level of ambition. And he's gotten to the point where he wants people to bow down before him and prostrate themselves. And knowing how much of a pushover Ahasuerus is, I doubt that that was something that he came up with. I'm pretty sure Haman decided that this is what I want people to do when they see me. And the king was like, oh yeah, let's make it a commandment that everybody has to bow down before you.
For the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not down, nor prostrated himself before him. Then the king's servants that were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spoke daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's words would stand. For he had told them that he was an Israelite.
Right, so Mordecai's not bowing down.
Right.
I don't think at this point that Haman recognizes it. So, you know, Mordecai's probably standing far back. Haman doesn't notice it, that he's not bowing down, but the other servants around him, of course, are noticing it. So they're questioning him, and he's like, you know, I'm not going to bow down before a man or prostrate myself. I worship the Most High. I'm an Israelite, and that's not what I'm going to do. So they're like, oh, okay, well, you say that now because he doesn't see you. He doesn't know yet that you're not bowing down. So what if we tell him, let's see, you know, if you're still going to keep that same story.
And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not down, nor prostrated himself before him, then was Haman full of wrath. But it seemed contemptible in his eyes to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for he had made known to him the people of Mordecai. For they had made known to him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Israelites that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. In the first month, which is the month Nisan, okay, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast Purim, that is, the lot, before Haman from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month, which is the month Adar.
Okay, so they snitched on Mordecai, of course, and told Haman that he wasn't bowing down, and that's when he got mad. He got beyond mad. So it wasn't, he just completely blew everything out of proportion. So he's not just seeing this as one person not bowing down to him and not going after that one person. Now that he knows that he's an Israelite, he's probably thinking, well, does that mean all the Israelites are not going to bow down to me? I mean, that's how far his mind is starting to go. And so it's just the ego that he has. And he's like, well, I'm not just going to kill that one. I'm going to kill all of them because maybe none of them are going to bow down before me. So he's trying to figure, he starts devising this plan on how he's going to manage to carry this out. And he's like, all right, I'm in a position of power right now, and I'm going to figure out how and when I'm going to eliminate all of these people. So what happens in the seventh verse is that he basically uses a game of chance to play around with our lives, basically, and figure out the day that he's going to assign for us to die. So when they're casting poor, it's basically like using dice, right? And they're throwing it on the floor, so the number 12 comes up, and he's like, all right, the 12th month, that's what we're going to do it. Then they do it again, and they figure out the day. Okay, 13th day, that's what we're going to do it. So that's how easy and how meaningless the lives of our people were to him, that he just kind of put it up to chance to figure out what our fate was going to be.
And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there's a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from those of every people. Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it profiteth not the king to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver unto the hands of those that have the charge of the king's business, to bring it into the king's treasuries. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Israelites' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee.
So Haman's starting to put his plan into place. He knows he has to get the support of the king. And this is where I wanted to strangle Ahasuerus. Because he doesn't even, there's no questioning what Haman wants to do. He's basically saying he wants to annihilate a whole bunch of people, and he's not challenging him in any kind of way. He just basically was like, oh, okay. Haman tried to make it sound like we were a threat. We're not following the king's commandments. So that's how he kind of played it up. And considering going back to when these two guys were trying to kill the king and they had an investigation on the matter, I'm like, okay, so you investigated these two people. Why aren't you investigating to find out why Haman wants to kill everybody? So just another point where he's just such a pushover. He just believes what he hears and takes it at his word. And then the giving of the signet. So the ring is really significant. That is like the king's signature. You use that to sign off on everything. And then that's an example of what it looks like. It's usually something that's raised. So what they do is, they'll put a letter together, they'll roll it up, they put a drop of wax on top of it, and then they press the signet into it so you know it came from Ahasuerus, and that seal stays sealed until the letter is open. So you can tell if it's been opened, if that seal is broken. So that's basically what Ahasuerus just gave to him. So he's basically handing them the keys to the kingdom, in a sense. And Haman's audacity is at the level where he's willing to reimburse the kingdom for the expenses that are going to have to be paid out to kill the Israelites. So it's like whatever money has to be spent to pay the scribes to write the letters, to get the word out, everything that you spend for me to do this, I'm going to pay for it out of my own pocket and put it back into the treasury. And the king says, oh, no, don't do that. You know, just take whatever you need out the treasury and do whatever you want. Like, he's not even asking for the money back. So that just shows you how little they value our lives back then.
Still do. Right. Then were the king's scribes called in the first month, on the 13th day thereof, and there was written, according to all that Haman commanded, unto the king's satraps, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the princes of every people, to every province according to the writing thereof, to every people after their language, in the name of King Ahasuerus was it written, and it was sealed with the king's ring.
So he didn't really waste any time, right? At the verse 7, we knew that he did the casting of the lots in the first month, and now we're on the first month on the 13th day. So less than 2 weeks later, he's already getting the ball rolling with bringing people in to start writing the letters.
And letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all Israelites, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for prey. A copy of the writing to be given out for a decree in every province was to be published unto all the peoples, that they should be ready against that day. The post went forth in haste by the king's commandment, and the decree was given out in Shushan, the castle, and the king and Haman sat down to drink. But the city of Shushan was perplexed.
So 11 months to the day. He sent these letters out in the first month on the 13th day, and this was going to go down in the 12th month on the 13th day. And basically telling everybody that was not an Israelite that on this day, you have the right to kill any Israelite and take their spoil, take all of their belongings, just like that. And then these two dummies come back to the castle and basically just like have a drink, right? They just sit down and have a drink and toast it like it's no big deal. And everybody around them is confused. They don't understand what just happened because it came out of nowhere. There's no present threat to indicate why this is happening. So everybody's just wondering like what just happened.
Now, when Mordecai knew all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and bitter cry. And he came even before the king's gate, for none might enter within the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Israelites, fasting and weeping and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes.
Even though we were in captivity, our culture stayed with us. So that was part of our culture for generations, that when we're in mourning, we wear sackcloth and we wear ash and we, sit in ashes. So even though they're in the Persian Empire, they're still, that's just, part of what they do in mourning. And Mordecai, because he's dressed this way, he can't come into the king's gate, so he's not at work. So he's, taking some PTO time right now so that he can be in mourning outside of the gate.
And Esther's maidens and her chamberlains came and told it her. And the queen was exceedingly pained, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai and to take his sackcloth from off him, but he accepted it not. Then called Esther to Hathach, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and charged him to go to Mordecai to know what this was and why it was. So Hathach went forth to Mordecai unto the broad place of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that happened unto him, and the exact sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay the king's treasuries for the Israelites, to destroy them. Also he gave him a copy of the writing of the decree that was given out in Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king, to make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for her people. And Hatak came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Then Esther spoke unto Hatak, and gave him a message unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know, whatsoever whether man or woman shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law for him, that he be put to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told to Mordecai Esther's word.
So I think a lot of this is self-explanatory. And because Mordecai was a servant of the king, I'm sure he knew, like she said, that she couldn't come before him without being called. And I think that his perspective was, you know, desperate times call for desperate measures. I know you're not supposed to show up unannounced, but you're in a position to be able to do something about this, so you have to go in there and do something.
Then Mordecai bade them return answer unto Esther. Think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Israelites, for if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then will relief and deliverance arise to the Israelites from another place. But thou and thy father's house will perish, and who knoweth whether thou art not come to royal estate for such a time as this?
Right, so he's basically saying, don't think that because you're his wife that that's going to save you. Look at what happened to Vashti. Right. He has no mercy. So you are going to have to do this whether you want to or not, because you're still going to die. They know, just because of the messages going back, we know at least Hatak knows, right? Because he's bringing these messages back and forth, so he knows she's an Israelite now. He's the chamberlain of the king, so he's going to tell the king probably. The word is going to get back to him. Her maidens came and told her what was happening with Mordecai, so they're probably figuring things out, so people know. And it's not going to save her, so she might as well speak up and use this as an opportunity. And just like he said, you don't know if this is the reason why the Most High put you in here, to save your people. So, you know, he's really laying it on thick, but he has to, because he kind of has to, you know, she's lived a very sheltered life, and I think has always kind of been under him and, you know, not really thinking on her own and that sort of thing. And this is where it gets to a point where she has to make that decision to really step into her own confidence.
Then Esther bade them return answer unto Mordecai. Go, gather together all the Israelites that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast in like manner, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. Now, it came to pass on the 3rd day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the entrance of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter.
You know, she had on her best outfit. She was like my life is on the line. I need to make sure that when he sees me, right. So yeah, she was decked out and probably smiling when he looked out the window, you know, to make sure that she gained his favor.
Then said the king unto her, What wilt thou, Queen Esther? For whatever thy request, even to half of the kingdom, it shall be given thee. And Esther said, If it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste, and it may be done as Esther had said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, Whatever thy petition, it shall be granted thee. And whatever thy request, even to have the kingdom, it shall be performed. Then answered Esther and said, My petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition, and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king hath said.
So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can interpret why she had them come the first day and then have them come back the second day. I think that she did it because she wanted to get a read on Haman. She had never been around him really. As we know, the men and women didn't socialize together. They had separate parties. And so there wasn't any she wasn't part of the kingdom's business. She wasn't part of the politics. So she didn't really know who he was. She just heard what she just heard from Mordecai, 3 days ago. So she's like, well, if he's the one behind all this, I need to understand what I'm dealing with. Right. So I think she had them come in that first day, so it would just be the two of them, and she can kind of just sit back and gauge the situation so she could figure out what she needed to do.
Then went Haman forth that day joyful and glad of heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not no more moved for him, Haman was filled with wrath against Mordecai.
So Mordecai's back at work. I think, after he had that conversation with Esther, verse 17, he went his way and did according to what she told him. So he probably figures, okay, she's going to handle this. So there wasn't any reason for him to still be in the broad place mourning. So he got dressed and went back to work to let her go ahead and deal with the situation.
Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself and went home. And he sent and fetched his friends and Zeresh, his wife. And Haman recounted unto them the glory of his riches, and the multitude of his children, and everything as to how the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and the servants of the king. Haman said moreover, Yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself, and tomorrow also am I invited by her together with the king. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Israelite sitting at the king's gate.
Okay. So, I think Haman has lost all sense of reason, and his level of arrogance is at the point where he calls his wife and his friends together so he could brag about his wealth and his success. And yet, he's still complaining with all of that about this one person who's getting under his skin and getting on his nerves. So what does that tell you about the person that really has the power? It really is Mordecai, because he's got this level, and he's not even aware of it, but he's got this level of power over Haman, that Haman's so obsessed with him that he can't even focus on the blessing that he has.
Then said Zeresh his wife and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and in the morning speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made.
So his wife and his friends are no good, because they just egging him on. And Haman's gotten to the point, he's already made this decree, right? So 11 months from now, Mordecai and everybody, all the other Israelites are supposed to die anyway. He doesn't even want to wait the 11 months for his own decree. Right. It's like he can't stand going almost a whole nother year walking by Mordecai and the guy is disrespecting him every day. So he's like, you know what? I can't do this. I can't wait. I need to kill him right now. So his friends and his wife are telling him to build this gallows. And just to give you a sense of how ridiculous the gallows are, 50 cubits is 75 feet. 75 feet. So he's making this thing, it's going to be like the highest structure in all of Shusha. He wants him not to just hang, but he wants everybody to see him hang. He wants to humiliate him so that everybody can see him all across the land. And now, thinking back to the two guys that got killed, what did they get hanged on? A tree. Right. Two men that tried to kill the king got hung on a tree, but he's like, no, a tree is not good enough. I got to build the highest thing that I can so I can watch him and see him swinging all the way up there. Just, like I said, lost all reason.
On that night could not the king sleep. And he commanded to bring the book of records of the Chronicles, and they were read before the king.
And so, let me just stop right there. This just made me laugh because it made me realize, you know, every other verse is like the king's chamberlains, king's chamberlains, king's chamberlains. And this is why he has so many chamberlains, because they wait on him hand and foot 24/7. So this is like the middle of the night. He can't sleep, and he wants to have somebody come and read to him from the record. So, you know, his chamberlains get up and start reading to him at, 3 o'clock in the morning.
And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, of those that kept the door, who had sought to lay hands on the king Ahasuerus. And the king said, what honor and dignity hath been done to Mordecai for this? Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, there is nothing done for him.
Right. All these years later, you know, it's just showing how useless he is. That he didn't even thank the guy that saved his life. Right. You know, all this time went by, and it's like, oh, what did we ever do for him? And it's like, he didn't do anything for him. They remembered.
Right. And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outer court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him.
Okay, so let me go back to what his wife said to him. Let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and in the morning speak thou unto the king. So we know that this is the middle of the night, right? And the king can't sleep. And Haman is in the outer court of the king's house, meaning he could not wait until the morning to tell the king that he made the gallows. He just, as soon as it was done, he went straight over to the thing, and he's just like hanging out, waiting for the guy to see him. Right, so that he can tell him as soon as possible, because he can't wait to hang Mordecai.
Now Haman was come into the outer court of the king's house to speak unto the king, to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servant said unto him, Behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, Let him come in.
So the king sees him, you know, it's like, who is that outside? And they're like, oh, that's Haman. So he's like, all right, you know, tell him to come in. So, you know, as Israelites, we don't believe in coincidence, right? We know that this is the Most High. He could not wait to come there in the middle of the night. So he comes there at the exact moment that Ahasuerus is going through, and he's probably pacing back and forth trying to think, okay, so I never did anything for this guy. What am I going to do to recognize this guy? And then Haman's there at the perfectly exact moment, and these two situations just kind of come together at this perfect intersection.
So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, What shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? Now Haman said in his heart, Whom would the king delight to honor besides myself?
Okay. Read it with feeling, Yadi. So I'm going to just jump real quick from that verse. I'm going to read Proverbs 16:18. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. So this is exactly what is happening with Haman right now. What he just said, like, who is he going to delight to honor besides me? So that's his pride and his anger and his arrogance coming before his fall.
And Haman said unto the king, For the man whom the king delighteth to honor, let royal apparel be brought, which the king used to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and on whose head a crown royal is set, and let the apparel and the horse be delivered to this hand of the one the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man therewith, whom the king delighteth to honor, and cause him to ride on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth to honor.
All right, excellent reading, Queen. So Haman is picturing himself to be king. And if you think about the situation, I mean, this is like the plot thickens. We don't know of him having any children with Vashti. So we're not aware of there being an heir at this point in time, right? Haman is now second in command because he's got that ring. So if you're somebody that's as devious and scheming as Haman is, he's already starting to think ahead. He's like, you know what? I could be king. So he's setting up that situation. You know, he's probably trying to start thinking about how can I start slipping something in his food. You know, because he would be the next in line. So in order for him to kind of solidify that, he has to have the people see him as the king. So everything that he's asking for, it's not just random stuff. He's asking for the clothes that the king wears. He's asking for the horse that the king rides on. He's asking for the royal crown. So he's going to be led through the streets, and everybody's going to see him and say, oh, he looks like a king. That's how they get you. So this isn't just random. He's plotting.
And the king said to Haman, Make haste, and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Israelite, that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken.
Don't y'all just wish y'all was there to see this?
Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and caused him to ride through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor.
That's exactly how he said it too. Thus shall it be done to the man who the king delighteth to honor. And I mean, we kind of have to just revel in this moment for a minute because it feels good. So, beginning of verse 11, then took Haman the apparel and the horse and arrayed Mordecai. So he had to go over there and dress the man, right? And you know Mordecai was probably loving every minute of it. You know, probably. Does this make me look fat? How does this look? You know, just showing off in front of him because he wants to rub it in really good. And I think this is one of the best cases that you'll ever read in any book anywhere of somebody having to literally like eat their words, right? So he leads him through the street. It's not that same night, you know, I'm sure he had to go through a lot to get the clothes and get the horse and all of that stuff. So this probably happens, actually it does happen the next day because everybody has to be awake to see this happen. So it wasn't that same night, it was the next day because later on that day is when he has to go back to the second banquet.
And Mordecai returned to the king's gate. But Haman hastened to his house, mourning and having his head covered. And Haman recounted unto Zeresh his wife and all his friends everything that had befallen him. Then said his wife, then said his wise men and Zeresh his wife unto him, if Mordecai, before whom thou hast begun to fall, be of the seed of the Israelites, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him.
So, going back to verse 12, it shows how humble Mordecai was. He went right back to work. Like this just didn't even happen. So the humility is there, and Haman, of course, is the exact opposite. He's falling out and being dramatic and acting like a baby and crying. And of course, he needs to have an audience, right? He wants to be the center of attention. So he calls his wife and his friends again so he can complain about what is happening or what happened today. And finally, his wife and his friends have the wisdom to see the situation for what it is. And they realize, you know what? They know the reputation of Israel. They know the reputation of the Most High and him being a savior for us. So as soon as they see, okay, this situation just flipped like overnight, and they realize, you know what? If he's an Israelite and this just happened to you today, you can't win. You can't stand against him.
While they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlains and hastened to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had prepared.
So this verse, I'm going to come back to this later on because to me it felt like foreshadowing. It's a precursor to what we're going to read towards the end of the next chapter, where while they're saying this to him, the chamberlains are coming in to take him to this banquet.
So the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, whatever thy petition, Queen Esther, it shall be granted thee, and whatsoever thy request, even to half the kingdom, it shall be performed. Then Esther the queen answered and said, if I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me and my petition, at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my peace, for the adversity is not worthy that adversary is not worthy that the king be damaged.
So he's asked her 3 times now what she wants, and offered her whatever she wants up to half the kingdom. And now she's finally telling him that what she wants is, she's petitioning for her life. And she's petitioning for the lives of her people. And that, you know, I think she needed some time to kind of figure out how she was going to put it out there. And she's just saying it like, this is what I need. I'm begging for my life right now. And she basically says, you know, if it was something lesser, like we were just being sold into slavery, then I wouldn't have bothered you about that, because that happens all the time. But my people and I are about to be massacred, so I needed to bring this to your attention.
Then spoke the king Ahasuerus and said unto Esther the queen, who is he, and where is he, that does presume in his heart to do so? And Esther said, an adversary and an enemy, even this wicked Haman.
Wicked Haman! That's how she said it.
Then Haman was terrified before the king and the queen.
You know, if this was on television, they would have zoomed in on him right now, right? So you can see his face. So he's not just terrified, I'm sure he's shocked. He was not expecting that. He was chilling, right? Drinking wine, thinking everything was okay. And just like that, plot twist, everything got turned around on him because he wasn't ready for that. He thought he was the slickest one, and she got him.
And the king arose in his wrath from the banquet of wine and went into the palace garden. But Haman remained to make requests for his life to Esther the queen. For he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king.
So the king probably didn't want Esther to see him in that state, because he's and he's like, you know what, I have to step outside for a minute because I don't want her to see me like this. And Haman recognized that anger, and he was like, oh, this is bad. This is real bad. And so now he's like begging for his life, because he knows now that his life is on the line.
Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the palace.
You getting fancy on me now?
Then the king returned out of the palace garden unto the place of the banquet of wine. And Haman was fallen upon the couch whereon Esther was. Then said the king, will he even force the queen before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face.
All right, so this is reflective of what we saw in the prior chapter, while as they were speaking, these guys come in. And it's probably the same guys, because the chamberlains came to his house to walk him to the banquet. Right, so those same chamberlains are probably like the king's bodyguards. They stepped outside. They weren't inside when he jumped up on the couch. So they stepped outside to guard the king when he walked into the garden, and they come back in with the king. And as soon as they saw and the king was speaking, the guys pulling the thing out of his pocket, like, okay, this is over, and just putting the mask over his head, because it's a wrap.
In Harbona, one of the chamberlains that were before the king, behold, also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman hath made for Mordecai, who spoke good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. And the king said, hang him thereon.
Right, so this guy, you know, is listening, and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, Haman has these gallows. Haman was probably bragging about it. The thing is, you know, 1,000 feet high, so everybody can see it anyway. So he's like, oh yeah, we're gonna kill him, so just take him to those same gallows that he just set up.
So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath assuaged.
All right, so they just said that the gallows were at his house. They hung him on those gallows, so I'm sure that happened right in front of his wife and probably his friends. So those same people that were egging him on, telling him to build it, got to witness him being executed.
chapter 8. On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Israelites' enemy, unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman.
So just like that, the same 10,000 talents of silver that he was willing to pay out of his assets to cover the cost of our execution.
Right.
That same money and all the rest of his estate went right to the same person, Mordecai, that he was trying to kill. So you know what they say about karma.
Right.
And Esther spoke yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Israelites. Then the king held out to Esther the golden scepter. So Esther arose and stood before the king. And she said, if it please the king, and if I have found favor in thy sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Israelites that are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred?
Right, so even though Haman's been killed, Esther's petition hasn't been granted. She asked for her life and the lives of her people, and they killed Haman, but that decree is still out there. So she has to go back to petition the king again and say, that didn't really solve what I asked for. So she's, begging him to please do something about the actual decree.
Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen and to Mordecai the Israelite, behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and to him they have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Israelites. Write ye also concerning the Israelites, as it liketh you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed with the king's ring, may no man reverse.
Right, so they bring in Mordecai to finish this conversation, and basically what they're saying is, we're going to need to sign off on another decree. Of course, he has the ring now, so he's the one that has to do it. So they bring him back in because they can't reverse the first one that went out. Once it's a decree and it's been sent out, that's the commandment and they can't change it. But what they can do is to write another one that can counter that. So they bring Mordecai back in so that he can sign off on that.
Then were the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, which is the month Sivan, on the 23rd, 23rd day thereof, and it was written, according to all that Mordecai commanded concerning the Israelites, even to the satraps and the governors and the princes of the provinces, which are from India unto Ethiopia, 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Israelites according to their writing, and according to their language.
Most of this, what they're describing, is almost identical to the exact same thing that happened when they wrote the first letter. There's one significant difference, though. In the first set of letters that got sent out by Haman, there was no mention of it going to the Israelites. This time, they added a sentence, and to the Israelites according to their language. So everybody else that was not an Israelite in that first letter, they all got the letter. We didn't get the letter. We ain't even know. Right. So we didn't know what was going. We found out through word of mouth. Right. The one that Mordecai had, somebody probably came because they knew what he was. They probably gave it to him. But this time around, it's like they had to tell us because we had to defend ourselves. So I thought that was real interesting that they didn't even send us the letters, decreeing us to die.
And they wrote in the name of the king Ahasuerus and sealed it with the king's ring and sent letters by post on horseback, riding on swift steeds that were used in the king's service. Bread of the stud.
So don't believe the U.S. government when they tell you they had the Pony Express. This is the original Pony Express.
That the king had granted the Israelites that were in every city to gather themselves together and to stand for their life, to destroy and to slay and to cause to perish all the forces of the people and province that would assault them, their little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Upon one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, the copy of the writing to be given out for a decree in every province was to be published unto all the peoples, and that the Israelites should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So the posts that rode upon swift steeds that were used in the king's service went out, being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandment, and the decree was given out in Shushan, the castle.
So the second decree that went out basically was saying that the Israelites have the right to defend themselves and to fight back against what's going to happen when that first decree comes to pass on the 13th day of the 12th month.
And Mordecai went forth from the presence of the king in the royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a robe of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan shouted and was glad. The Israelites had light and gladness and joy and honor. And in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Israelites had gladness and joy, a feast and a good day. And many from among the people of the land became Jews. For the fear of the Israelites was falling upon them.
Right, so now people recognize the power of the Most High. Amen. When they see it. So all of these different people are seeing that the same way that Zeresh, Haman's wife, and his friends recognized that the Most High was in the matter. Right. All of these people are starting to see that too, like, wow, they just got saved from what was going to be pretty much, utter destruction of this entire nation. And so when they recognized that, they realized, you know what, I want to be a part of what you all are doing and what you all are about. So they converted and started following the Most High's laws and commandments. And I think that is probably one of the reasons why, if you visit the parts of the world today that used to be part of the Persian kingdom, that you find pockets of our culture. That's right. And our practices in other nations. It's because they started it from back then and it just trickled down through all those generations. Mm-hmm. Amen. Hallelujah.
Now in the 12th month, which is the month Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Israelites hoped to have ruled over them, whereas it was turned to the contrary, that the Israelites had ruled over them that hated them. The Israelites gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them. For the fear of them was fallen upon all the peoples, and all the princes of the provinces, and the satraps, and the governors, and they that did the king's business helped the Israelites, because the fear of Mordecai was fallen upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went forth throughout all the provinces. For the man Mordecai waxed greater and greater.
The Most High blessed him.
Amen.
And he became really powerful.
Amen.
And with power comes new friends. And because, you know, he's the second in command now, basically, all of these other princes that report up to him are going to support him in what this new decree is. So I think that as the Israelites needed help, they were the ones to provide that, because we're a scattered nation now. So we don't have an army. We don't have arms to defend ourselves. So they're all probably provided all of these military supplies and things to the people in support of Mordecai to make sure that we're able to fight back.
And the Israelites smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and with slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto them that hated them. And in Shushan the castle the Israelites slew and destroyed 500 men, and Parshandata, the Dalphone, and Ashpata, and Porata, and Adalia, and Aradata, and Parmashta, and Arisai, and Aridai, and Vizata, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hamidata, the Israelites' enemy, slew they, but on the spoil they laid not their hand.
You did very good with that. I'm very proud of you. Okay, so the day has come, and now we've got these Israelites fighting back and killing other people. And so in the castle, or in Shushan alone, they killed 500 people. And then they killed the 10 sons of Haman. They needed to make sure that there wasn't going to be any kind of retaliation. You know, they've been pissed for the last 11 months. So now they want to make sure that there's not going to be any way that they can retaliate over the death of their father. So they made sure that they got all 10 of them. And then we didn't want their stuff. So even though that was part of the decree, it says that, you know, we can take, what verse was that, 11? Take the spoil of them for a prey. We were like, well, we don't even want it. You know, we killed them and we're not even going to touch their stuff.
On that day, the number of those that were slain in Shushan the castle was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther the queen, the Israelites have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the castle, and the 10 sons of Haman. What then have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now, whatever thy petition, it shall be granted thee, and whatsoever thy request further, it shall be done. Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Israelites that are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto the king's, unto this day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done. And a decree was given out in Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. And the Israelites that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month Adar, and slew 300 men in Shushan. But on the spoil they laid not their hand.
Esther is on the warpath. She is like one day was not enough. So, and this only happens in Shushan, so it's not throughout the whole rest of the kingdom. The whole kingdom just has the one day, but she's like, I want to make sure we got everybody. So he grants her another day in Shushan for this execution to take place. And on top of that, she was like, and I want you to hang the 10 dead sons on the I mean, she was just like, I haven't gotten it all out of my system yet. I need to see them hang even though they're dead. So she was just, she wasn't ready to quite give that, let that go yet. So they went through a whole nother day in Shushan and slew another 300 men on top of the 500 that they killed the day before and still didn't touch any of their stuff.
And the other Israelites that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives and had rest from their enemies and slew of them that hated them 75,000.
Wow.
But on the spoil they laid not their hand.
We don't want it.
On the 13th day of the month Adar, and on the 14th day of the same, they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Israelites that were in Shushan assembled themselves on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore do the Israelites of the villages that dwell in the unwalled towns make the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another.
It became a day of commemoration and thanksgiving and celebrating life, because it could have been death for them. So they're, making this a day for them to celebrate.
And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Israelites that were in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to enjoin them that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar, and the 15th day of the same, yearly, and the days wherein the Israelites had rest from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to gladness, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and gladness, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Israelites took upon them to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Israelites, had devised against the Israelites to destroy them, and had cast poor slick eye. That is the lot, to discomfort them and to destroy them. But when she came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he had devised against the Israelites, should return upon his own head, and that he and his son should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they called these days.
You can pause right there.
You can peel this.
I wasn't going to correct you again. I was like, I'm going to let him figure it out. So Haman, in all of his obsession with trying to destroy Mordecai and trying to destroy us as a people, everything just got completely turned around. It became, all of that became his ultimate downfall. And I think it's a good reminder to all of us that we need to mind our business and just not worry about what other people are doing, right? Just take care of yourself and not focus on that and just be humble. You know, he was the opposite, complete opposite of humble. So I think that he serves as a lesson to everybody, what not to do.
Wherefore they call these days Purim. Amen. After the name of Pur. Therefore, called because of all the words of this letter and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and that which had come unto them, the Israelites ordained, and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to the writing thereof, and according to the appointed time thereof, every year, and that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Israelites, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed.
They reclaimed that word, basically. Haman had used poor to determine our fate. He gambled with our lives, and they were like, you know what, we're claiming that. So we're going to turn what was going to be a day of sadness into a day of happiness for us. So this really is a celebration. You know, we don't add on to the Torah, of course, so it's not a holy day, but it's basically a commemoration. So the same way that we celebrate the New Year is how we celebrate Purim.
Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abigail, and Mordecai the Benjamite, wrote down all the acts of power to confirm the second letter of Purim. And he sent letters unto all the Israelites to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus with words of peace and truth to confirm these days of Purim in their appointed times, according as Mordecai the Benjamite and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they had ordained for themselves and for their seed the matters of the fastings and their cry, and the commandment of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book.
So Esther is decreeing her own commandments now. She has come a long way since the beginning. Yes, sisterhood power. She has come a long way from who we met. From who we met at the beginning. You can do it next year, Ben, and you can give your own opinion. So she came from a place of not having any authority. She came from a place of not having any confidence and dependent on her uncle for everything. And now she's the one that's writing these decrees, and she's got that confidence and really just matured in the 8 years, you know, from the 4th year to the 12th year of Ahasuerus, in those 8 years that she's been queen.
And the king Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land and upon the isles of the sea, and all the acts of his power and of his might, and the full account of the greatness of Mordecai, how the king advanced him. Are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Benjamite was next unto King Ahasuerus, and great among the Israelites, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the good of his people and speaking peace to all his seed.
So he levied a tax, laid a tribute upon the land. After all of this has been done, remember, Haman wasn't around anymore to reimburse the kingdom for all the money that was spent, right? So you had the money that went out to pay for all the stuff that happened with the first decree. You had all the money that now went out to help support the second decree, right? With providing support to the Israelites. So you got all this money, and he has no way of getting that back, basically. So he's like, I think part of it was guilt, because he knew he signed off on that first letter without even questioning it, and he feels bad because of the impact that it had on Esther. So now, unfortunately, the people are the one that had to pay for that, because he's taxing them to bring that money back in and reimburse the treasury because of a stupid, blind decision that he made. But it's always nice to have a happy ending. Everything kind of ends well, and because this history is recorded as part of our book, it's also recorded in Persian history. So the same way that they say it's written in the Chronicles of King Ahasuerus. So somewhere in what's present-day Iran, because that's what the Persian Empire eventually became, and that part of the world, they've got history written just like this to match what happens in this story. And then the last thing I'll say is that when you read through this, you realize that there's not a single instance of the mention of the Most High in this book. But it's very clear. It doesn't have to be written. You know that His presence is there because of everything that's happened. And He used Esther as a tool the same way that He used Joseph when He put him in Egypt, to be able to be in a position of power and influence to save his family, and she saved her people. So the Most High, you never know. It's never what it looks like or what it seems, but He's always there and watching over us. And woohoo, I got through it. And thank you all.
Powerfully delivered. I can hear a little bit. I don't know about you. I can hear a bit of saw in her. You might got her own thing in there. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. A little footnote, by the way, because I think you just wondered if there were children from Ahasuerus. Ezra and Nehemiah are the next books coming up, and they did have a son, either through him or through her or Vashti, Artaxerxes, Artaxerxes. That's who Nehemiah was the Mordecai of. He was there serving him. Very different response. There were Israelites that said, we need to just go home. And he said, you want your stuff back? You want your temple back? You have any problems? You have people writing letters? I'm squashing it. I'm letting you know you can go home. So thanks to Queen Esther, that was the response. When people started to say, let's get up out of here and let's build our own land. So hallelujah once again for that. Let us sing a song before we go into our second portion of the evening. Let's sing about our land, Jerusalem, and even condemning the memory of Haman, who was of the seed of Edom, who did say, raise it, raise it, raise it to the ground. By the river of Babylon, there we sat down and cried. When we remember Jerusalem, we were singing Go ahead and call up our Moreh Shemuel ben Levi ben Israel.
Hallelujah. Shabbat shalom Lechem. Shalom Baptisha. We've heard a lot of talking today, a lot of interesting portions, and I would like to even at this time open up a question and answer period, especially based on the book of Esther. I heard a lot of mumbling during the delivery, so I'm assuming a lot of people have opinions, etc. in it. I must congratulate our sister, Akhot, Kamaniyah, for how the way she did it, her perspective was excellent. I've heard it done many times. This was a very beautiful perspective on the way it was delivered. So this time I'd like to open up a question and answer period in the, how's this saying go, in the case of controversy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The final word rests at the Mizbeach to feel, not because we know more, but because we're the place of order on the Holy Shabbat day, and I know it's needed today. So, yes, questions on the portion, perspectives, people can give their opinions, whatever. Akhot Kenya. Shabbat shalom.
Alright, so this part always makes sense to me. So the second letter, I wanted to know if you feel that the interpretation was accurate. Because the second letter says it included the Israelites that time, she made that clear. But that it said it granted them permission to fight back, which is weird to me. Because even just self-preservation, even if they didn't know what was happening to them, you'd actually, if they just turned around and started to, I'm going to fight back, defend myself. So it was weird to me that a decree had to go out to tell them, oh, now you can fight back. So I wanted to know if you think that it was an accurate interpretation that the second letter said they could fight back, or was it to make them aware of what was happening? Because it just doesn't make sense that you have to tell somebody, even if I'm a slave, I'm fighting back. That I could fight you back. I can defend myself.
Okay. I saw Daniel's hand first.
I would first just take it back, not to really answer the question, but I would take it back to when they took the young virgins. They didn't have a say then, so maybe they felt like, because they didn't fight back when they took Esther, nobody really fought back to keep the women, so maybe they felt like they were just of lesser power. So at the same time, I think it was a way to make them aware that they were coming to fight them so that they could fight back, but at the same time also let them know that you do have the power to fight back. It's not something where we just taking your women and leaving or killing y'all and y'all can't do anything about it. So I think it's
Shabbat Shalom. It's like, let's take it up to modern days. They had to make a law, a civil rights law, to keep them from doing things to us. And remember during the time when you were in those slave fields, we outnumbered those overseers, but we never fought back. You know, so they had to make a law that says to overcome the Jim Crow laws. You know, you had to write a law that it's okay for you to use the public restroom now. Because remember, it used to be colored only and white only. So now you have to tell the people, although they haven't stopped killing us in the same way, that's the same thing that they were going to do as they were doing then. It's the same thing that they do now. They kill us when they want, but then these laws that we have now are supposed to be more protecting of you. But you know, it's, when they say justice, they mean just us.
Yeah, total Zachary, and I was thinking along that line because today if a policeman stops you, he has the authority to kill you. And you see many of them, they get off. If we try to defend ourselves by firing back, you know, you could see, they would say, okay, you're guilty, you don't have the authority to do that. So in the same way, you have to remember, who were we in Persian, in the Median Empire? We were slaves basically. So we did not have the authority over our own selves to defend ourselves. So that had to be written into law, as Zachary said. We got to put it into the perspective of what's going on. I have a question. No, I went to one Purim celebration that was years ago in Barbados, at a synagogue there in Barbados, and it was a strange situation. I didn't know what to expect. There I went, and the man that normally conducts the service, he was dressed as his wife. And his wife was dressed as him. Okay, so during Purim, you know that they wear costumes and so on. So if anyone can give me information, why in Judaism do they dress, I can't remember exactly the explanation I got, why do they wear costumes on Purim? Because the way we look at it from a historic perspective, you know, we learn lessons from it, but why is it that they wear costumes on Purim?
I feel like they missed out. I don't know.
Kim, good. Shabbat Shalom.
Probably has a really good answer.
Yeah, he probably would know.
I've always understood that the way the Jews celebrate it basically is they've commercialized it. They don't have a version of Halloween, so they took this celebration to make it their version of Halloween for their kids, the same way that they turned Hanukkah into an exchange of gifts. That's not what it was ever meant to be either. It was a memorial. So I think that they've done that to try to accommodate their kids having some kind of holiday where they can put costumes on the same way that other kids put costumes on for Halloween. That's the way I've always seen it. And they've commercialized it, and that's what they turned it into, even though it shouldn't be.
Because I heard as well, they were saying that on that day you could not tell who was who or something like that. Why do they wear costumes on Purim?
I think you mentioned it. In fact, one of the we went to the Purim celebration, the reading of Esther at Temple Israel, and one of the rabbis asked, pointed out, yeah, it was something that we got from Eastern Europe, like half the stuff that we do. That's not in the Tanakh. She was joking, but it's like she recognizes it's not there. Carnival, like what is that? Mardi Gras. all that stuff is almost always a week or so before, just like Easter's always around a week of Pesach, and so on and so forth. So if they're having their fun and they're doing Mardi Gras, then for JC in Catholic stuff, then maybe we can take some of that and add it to the revelry. Whereas historic Israelite communities from, as it said, India to Ethiopia, either they don't do, they do what we basically did here. We celebrate the Creator for what He did. We have fun. We do kind of the fun and games that we do, on a secular day that we want to do something for the community. But it's not, wearing tutus and stuff. That has nothing to do with our struggle for freedom.
So probably because the name of the Creator was not in the portion, they felt that He could have made it secular. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, they know everything. Okay, let me invoke some questions.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
I was going to also say something else that's very special. As many of you know, I did do a translation and a translation of a Hebrew commentary on this book. Something that was very special about this time period is with Darius and Cyrus and these other kings, you always had other prophets like Daniel, Ezekiel, the prophet and priest. There was no other prophet during this time of Ahasuerus. So it really came down to Esther. And it says at the end, Vatichtov Esther, right? So Esther and Mordechai are the writers of this book. And so I think that she's writing it so that it could be part of their chronicles. If we said Yehovah this and that, and it's like, that's not our, we don't understand that. But if you write it like a journalist, on this day and on this month, these things happen, hey, you can't deny the facts. So she wrote it with Mordecai's support to be something that can be a part of the official history of Persia.
Correct.
Right. Because then, as I mentioned, this boy that's growing up, who's the heir to Ahasuerus' throne, he's completely different. He writes blank checks. When you read Esther, Ezra, and Nehemiah, when we say, okay, we're thankful for what Esther did, but they're sitting there halfway not killing us and halfway killing us. It's time for us to go home. Can we go home now? That's what Nehemiah starts off with. I'm tired of kind of serving you wine. Can I just build my own land? And he's like, yes. And there were people who wanted to stop us from building, and all he had to do was make a phone call back to Persia, and they squashed all of those people. They remembered Haman. So that's also why we should celebrate Esther more. Our sisters, our women of Israel should see that as a model. Just like Daniel was praying for this day, Esther actually made it possible.
Hallelujah. Shabbat Shalom.
I don't have an answer as to why Jewish people wear costumes during Purim, but we are returning back to our culture, our history, our heritage, and we can clearly see that this portion of history is our portion. And we have the power and the authority to do things to bring back the remembrance of this particular time. So for years, I have been celebrating Purim with the Benny family. And some of the things that we did was we let the children dress up in costume, but they had to dress up as someone. Moses, Aaron, a member of the story of the book of Esther. So the women, we proudly wore crowns. Every year we wore, we wore crowns. And the women, always did the story of Esther. We had feasts. We had full-on feasts, diverse goblets. The children had, I did like special arts and crafts with them where I brought goblets, and then they were able to put jewels all over the different goblets so that when they sat down for the feast and they had their juice or the adults had their wine, we had these things. We have the power and authority. We don't have to do things the way that other people do it, and we shouldn't shy away from doing things when it's our history. We don't stop doing Passover because other people, Jews or whoever, are doing Passover. We still keep these days. Even though it's not a law, it's not Torah, you know, the law that the Most High gave, but there's nothing wrong with having celebrations. None of this stuff, they didn't say anything about offering up some kind of offering to a false god. There was no idol worship. Part of the celebration, what they did was have a feast 2 days. They gave to others, gave presents, gave gifts. So I don't see anything wrong with us capturing that essence and putting that into part of our celebrations. It's not everything has to be so strict in just Torah. You know, we're coming back to know our history, everything. I really feel that we should embrace it. And we don't have to do it the way that other people do it. We can do it according to the guidelines that's written in the book of Esther.
Okay, any questions? This is your opportunity. Okay, my question is, we had a situation with Queen Vashti refusing to appear before the king. The manner in which, number one, do you think she was in the right to do so, bring it up into a modern day perspective? Number two, in the way it was handled, do you think it was the right thing to do? Anyone can respond. I know that was one of the areas that people were like, it's your opportunity, speak.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So this, when I was translating this, because there's a key verse in that when Memo Khan says, it's not just about this little one thing. There's all sorts of societal implications here. Here it says, in like the old JPS, it's like the princesses of Persia, you know, will say this to their, you know, to the princes. But when you look at it, it says in Hebrew, like right now, today, you already have princesses talking to your own princes in their face, and they have a whole lot of condescension and anger when they speak. So I'm just putting that as something to help the discussion, that they are saying you have, assuming he's not distorting the situation, her way of responding was already causing what is very familiar to us in America, of talking smack to your husband, which would have been a new thing back then. So that was why it got a lot of traction to become a law. I'm not on one side or another, but that's helpful to get a sense of what the Hebrew is really saying. Like it was changing the culture.
You just made it worse, but yes, of course.
All right.
Shabbat Shalom.
All right, so I remember when Cohen Sheikh was ordained. I don't know how many years.
It'll be 9 years.
Okay. And after it happened, Cohen Levy called me, and he told me how my life was going to change, and how I had to, things that was going to come before me with different sisters and different in the community and Israelite culture, and then what my response and how I should be and how I needed to be in this new role. His life wasn't going to change. My life was also going to see some changes. So while I understand Mina's interpretation and what she did, because Sheikh's not a drunk and he doesn't make me come around and do, I can't speak to what she had to live with. Yeah, what her life was like, what her reality was like. But just knowing what I learned and how you need to represent yourself at that level, she could have gone and just come and, you know, and really jacked him later, like really dealt with him later. But I understand how she might have felt, maybe having to always do this, and she maybe had to come out through those 6 months before, and she came during the party, and he was just jerked in, and this day was like, I'm just over it, and she just didn't do it. So I get that it was probably she was at that level of frustration where she was just like, I'm just not doing it today. and it had an impact on what everybody saw, and they felt that it was just then going to impact to how the other ladies responded to their husbands. But perhaps she might have, maybe after the first couple times, she should have dealt with him and talked to him about, listen, stop calling me out there to do this. I'm not going to be, just deal with him. And maybe he wasn't unreasonable. So there are a lot of variables, but perhaps maybe she should have, and she probably should have been talking to him about manning up and always not discussing things with her, and how she always got advice from all these people that wasn't always reasonable. So perhaps she should have dealt with it because she had a role that was influential, like Mina said, and handled it another way. But I do understand Mina's interpretation of it and why she might have responded the way that she did that night.
Just a minute, what would you have done?
I'm not I don't know. In theory,
You're the first lady now. So.
Yeah. He's drunk. I'm right. He's drunk. I know me. I'm a work in progress. But we have a good relationship where I can tell him anything. We can discuss anything. When he doesn't like something, he can tell me, and I can get my life together, try to accept what is being said to me. And he's pretty good with me talking to him. So I might have come out and dealt with him later, because we've had situations where I felt like embarrassed once or twice before, and he maybe didn't mean to do it, but I felt a way, and we've discussed it. So I just don't like to be embarrassed, and I don't want to ever have that conversation like, did you see what's happening with him at the place? So I probably would have went with it, and we would have had a real discussion on the way home.
It's supposed to be after your brother say something. It's supposed to be after you.
I'd like to have a ceremony.
Shabbat Shalom. Want to commend Kamaniyah on her interpretation of this portion.
Excellent. Excellent.
Your interpretation. But there's a fine line between what you do in public and I just had the word on my abuse. Spousal abuse. Now we can have a talk afterwards, but if you know, like it's been messages plenty of times from the Mizbeach, know who you with, know who you married. Now if you know this person is this type of person who gets really riled up, okay, I don't mind being shown off to his friends, but don't show me off like that, because now you're not even respecting my feelings. So when does it become abusive to me? We talk about when women want to speak up and say, okay, enough is enough. You've put me in situations that could have been dangerous. Him parading her around in front of his friends at any time, when could have one of her friends decide to say, well, he ain't looking, and I kind of like what he see. So why would a man, or why would my significant other put me in a situation that could put me in peril? And I'm bringing it up to today. I understand about way back then. Women were property and we would be doing what we told. But if you don't know who you are with or who you are about to get connected with, to know that you have an open line of communication, that's the fine line between that and abuse, in my opinion.
No.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I think that what happened, Vashti was clearly wrong.
Hello.
Yes, Vashti was wrong. I mean, in that day and age, women were property. That sounds bad now, but we were property. And as the king's wife, there's a different level of just how you should act in general. So yeah, different level. I mean, you can say responsibility, yes, that's part of it, but there's a different level of just overall anything, as your whole appearance, how you need to act. And she did not do the right thing. But the proper way would have just been to go ahead and
do your job.
Submit to what he said. That's the honest truth. That's the honest truth. Submit. Yes, she should have went up there. She can have her private conversation, kind of like, you know, Kamaniyah said earlier, or when she stood up. But she could have had her private conversation with King. I don't like how you did this to me, but in no way whatsoever she should have disrespected him by not going up there. That was not her place, and that's why, you know, she got sat down. That was the question. Both of them?
Excellent. That's what everybody. Well, when you look at the manner in which, like how Esther was selected, that whole selection process, you saw that they were basically brought in and trained to be at the king's bidding. They had no, like in today's relationship, you'd see someone, you'd get to meet them, know their likes and dislikes. He didn't care about that. Right. You had one job. You understand? So she did not fulfill what she was selected for. And you know, in the context of ancient days, many of us were looking at it in a modern day perspective, as you know, and she had to pay the price for that. Yeah.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. You know, looking at it from a modern day perspective, like my brother Yirmiyahu was saying, it's the State of the Union address, and Obama he's up there giving his speech, Fox News and CNN, everyone's there. Hey Michelle, but you know, please stand up for the people and blah blah blah, this and that. And she like, I ain't doing nothing. No, I'm not moving around. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. It is the same. It is the same. Because the people in that Congress, the people of Congress, there ain't no saints out there. The House of Representatives, the Senate, all them boys that, you know, that got their own agendas, the GOP, the good old party. Nobody wants to go parade around.
We're not promoting the spirit of Vashti here.
I mean, she could have been a good dancer. She could have been the best. That's why he married her. She could have been a good dancer. She could have been talented. She could have been talented. So, you know, I'm just saying, if you were a political figure at a certain place, just gotta play do your job, stand up when Barack says stand. That's how in front of the people. Smack the lady when you get home. But it's all.
Shabbat shalom, Lakim. I gotta agree with my brother. It's all about, you know, it's the position.
Just put your hands up if you have a question.
It's the position, you know, I have to agree. I mean, look at what, I'm sure a lot of you seen it, when Donald Trump, when he was coming up, when trying to hold her hand and she slapped his hand, you know, like, that's not a good look, you know, that's not a good look. So, you know, you gotta consider your position. But I had a question, and this is just as for anyone. Do you think that King Ahasuerus would have done that to Esther?
No. If she was a good dancer?
If what he did to Vashti, telling her to come and, you know, do you think he would have done that to Esther?
I don't really want to comment much. I want to hear your views, so I have a lot of thoughts about it, but I saw Akhot Kenya, then El Mahdi, and then Daughter Shisham. Yeah. Brothers, please stand up.
That was my question. I felt like Vashti just filled the role. Like she just filled the role as queen. I didn't know if there was actually a marriage or a connection like that. The words, the way it was written, made you feel that he loved
Esther. He actually really loved her, but she was the queen, and she was his wife, and there was a connection there. I didn't feel like, well, maybe they didn't give us enough information, but just how he treated her, and he was able to be persuaded so easily by the cabinet, the advisors, that perhaps she just filled the role, and that's why he went about like sleeping with everybody just to see who can comfort him next, and not really falling in love with anybody until he met her. Esther.
Can I quote Almighty right here?
First of all, I think both of them were wrong. Because if my husband was drunk, I'm just putting myself in a situation. If my husband was drunk and called me to show off me in front of his friends, he was wrong in that moment, in the way that he was. Secondly, I would have been wrong if I didn't go to him when he called upon me. But when I go to him, I would have said, Slika Ish, can we meet in the room? Because you wouldn't have done that to me and exposed me like that to your friends. Right up then, I would have put a stop to it and said, listen, sweetheart, this can't happen. Let's do it another day when you're in your sober moment. But you would have had to put a stop to it right then and there. Thank you.
I see your hand up there.
So a lot of people said what I was thinking. I think, like it's like hindsight 2020. We get a chance to see the characters as we read through the chapters. So clearly he was someone that you could speak to, because Esther was able to get through to him. So I think that Vashti made a bad move. I think that, again, she should have gone ahead and performed her stately duty and then had a conversation with him later about that. And because I think that, and it's just that when we talk about bringing it up to date, it's about relationships. Really, and the you have to, it's your job, even though you have to submit to your husband, it's your responsibility to know how to talk to him and to be able to persuade him and convince him of your logic and your righteous thought. So you have to, that's an art sometimes, and Vashti, she needed to learn that. Esther had it, Vashti maybe didn't have it. That's right.
Use the mic to the camera.
Alright, so based on that whole story, the king was the king. He liked nice things, he had nice things, he liked showing off his nice things. His characteristics, what was his characteristic? It told us that in the story. So he had these multiple women, and I'm pretty sure that wasn't the first time that happened. So this one time, it did happen, and he got the backlash from that one particular female, because, like you said, he had a rotate. Even though she was a queen, he had a rotate. And the reason why I feel Esther wouldn't have did that, because his relationship with Esther was probably different than the ones than what he had with all the other ones. Meaning that her spirit was different. They actually built a connection and actually talked. So if she was ever put in that situation, he would have thought twice, like, nah, Esther's not that one. Or he could have been like, okay, this is not even a party for Esther, so I'm not even going to invite her. I'm going to invite somebody else. Because they had a connection, it's a different connection. He actually spent time with it. It wasn't just, okay, this is your time, this is your selection, I'm going to do what I want to do, what you would do. No. She made sure that she took advantage of all her time she had with him by building it. She wasn't just, okay, like, Mina said that they was almost holding hostage. They held hostage.
Like R. Kelly situation.
I don't I think that they had an opportunity to be queens, and they all jumped to it in that certain time. So, in the opportunity to be about becoming queen, they knew what they was getting into. But Esther just had a different spirit. She just knew what she was there for. I'm not gonna be like y'all. I'm gonna talk, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. She was a 2019 woman, and back then, she had a mind for herself. I'm not gonna force it, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna talk to her, I'm gonna charm him. Not only with my body, but with my mind and my conversation. I think that's what happened. And he dealt with them based on, he respected her, and he dealt with them based on how they presented themselves. The queen was his trophy, so he treated her like a trophy. Okay, I got all these nice things, she's nice, she's decked out, come look at her, come here. She's, oh no, you ain't playing your part as a trophy, you gotta go. That's my unfortunate.
Even today in Swaziland, if you go and Google Swaziland, you will see that, I don't know how often he does it, but the king of Swaziland, he has the young virgins parade in front of him. It's on YouTube, you can go and check. They all do a little march and a dance, and he selects them up to today in 2019. You understand? But if we look in our culture as Israelites, you would see that there's a law that the Most High gives to the king, and he said the king shall not do what? Multiply wives to himself. Because that was not our cultures having women just laying around. He had his queen, as I was saying, but he had all these concubines. That he, it was not, you could see a culture like that. It was not one that was progressive. It's not around today. Because if you have a section of your society, especially a section that is supposed to be teaching the next generation, etc., on a lower level, it therefore means that what your future generations are going to be like. If you study even the Saudi kingdom today, they're celebrating, I think it was last year or the year before, the women were allowed to drive. Simple things like that. You would see that there are certain cultures that keep our women oppressed. And coming into the Western civilization as Israelites, we have to understand that we met this here, where the European man had his woman in subjection, and she fought for the woman's rights and so on. That's not an Israelite situation. We just came into it and inherited. But because we were trained by the European man, we brought in many of their character traits. We know that the man is head of the home, yes. But how do we do it? Do we do like the European, how he had his woman in subjection? I spoke about the rule of thumb before, where you could beat her with something like less than a length of a thumb or some craziness. That's not the way as Israelites that we do it. We have to look at our woman. Like, I think the standard for our woman is Proverbs chapter 31. How she was able to function as a wife in the home, but yet she was making money, a businesswoman, providing for the home, etc. I can remember myself and Queen Michael, we met 3 other Israelites in Barbados for the global conference for Africans and African descendants. And Sir Kazriel, he was at Tour Kazriel at that time, he was coming from England to lead our delegation. But before he came, Atora Yafa came from Atlanta. She was the head of our group before Sar came. So here we were, we delivered ourselves to the conference, our papers, whatever, documents. And then we went back to the hotel. Even though she was the head of our delegation, when we went back to the hotel, she was the one, she went to the kitchen, prepared our meals, and fed us. So in my young mind, it was many years ago, I saw that she was the head of our delegation, but yet it was nothing for her to take on the role of a mother or whoever and feed us. You understand? So I saw this sister, the comedian Monique. She's a comedian, so people would think, she's always been funny, whatever. But I saw her in an interview. She was saying that the strength of a woman is in her humility. Because today we are being trained, or the women's league are being trained to, be aggressive in the society that we live in. But it also comes back to the way the men are in society. I mean, there's some women that are just naturally aggressive. You could be, you know, they say a soft answer turns to be raw. That does not always work. So you gotta know each other. I think someone was saying that you gotta know the spouse that you are dealing with. Not that I'm so experienced in all these things, but from the few years I have been with women, I know that it takes both sides. You cannot be an arrogant man, have a wonderful Isha, and expect the Isha just be towing the line. That is abuse. Akhot. Yeah, that's abuse, spousal abuse. And as well, many times people when they hear spousal abuse, they immediately think what? The man is doing that to the woman. But women abuse men. You know what I mean? They do it. You have cases where the society is against him, he is lower than a dog, he can't do nothing, but the woman doing everything that is antagonizing him. He can't react anyway because she can call the police and that's it. So as Israelites, we look at these portions and we try to say, like, at least for me, how should I apply this in my life circumstances and situations so that when I leave the world out there from work, I know that home is my refuge. There's no place else that I want to be. In Guyana, when a man is out, they would say, probably his house has wet paint. He can't go because the paint is wet in the house, or he has exposed wires, he could be shot. Just making jokes to say that his house is unwelcoming to him. So as Israelites, our home should be that refuge. Here in Akhot, Kenya.
Do you think, because Kamaniyah said it, that that the story was centered around Persian culture? So I'm trying to think back to our history and some of the stories of our forefathers. And Abraham consulted his wives and his wife or his wives and other of our forefathers. They did have better relationships. Do you think this was indicative of or specific to Persian culture?
It's not Persian culture, but I would say it's like Eastern culture because, okay, in Guyana we have the African Guyanese. But then you as well, you have the East Indian Guyanese. And the East Indian Guyanese came over after slavery was abolished so that they could fill the void of that lacking workforce. So they came over not as slaves and losing their culture, they maintained their culture. And in their culture, the women are extremely submissive in terms of the men beat them physically. Physical abuse is normal. Some of them even say that if your husband is not beating you, he doesn't love you. It's in their culture. It is so bad that if a man marries a woman, his mother as well can beat her. You see? So it's an Eastern culture situation. That is why the Mosai had to place certain laws. Remember, Abraham came from there, in that area, so the Mosai had to give us certain laws to discontinue certain norms in society that the East was accustomed to. And spousal abuse, remember, that was the level of their spouse that they could have done, and even today, they do it, they beat their women. Yeah, go tell Mali.
One of the things that was baffling me right now one of the things that baffles me that what Ben said, these women basically went freely because they know that this was a king and they wanted to give themselves. And I totally don't agree with that because I could remember reading inside the story that they sent officers in these provinces to get these virgins. So did they willingly go? It doesn't seem so. If you send officers to me, if I was willingly going, I would have reached to the palace on my own. You understand? So help me out with that, please.
Okay, it's different perspectives, but what I would understand, if you look at the size of the kingdom, it was huge. So those officers probably did not go into force, but they came out with a decree just to escort the women back to the area. That's how I would look at it. I would look at it from the perspective of the Stockholm effect, where the kidnappee starts to love the kidnapper. And it was such a situation that they were desperate because here you are a servant, as he's saying, and you now have the opportunity to be a queen. So they took that opportunity. You understand that perspective, that Today I'm a servant, tomorrow I can be a queen. And then when they do that, just like what Esther did, she went back and helped her people. You understand? She now has, like in the Congress or the Senate, they represent, like, let's say, North Carolina. So when they're there with their meetings, they can vouch for North Carolina and get some money coming into our society and our neighborhoods. Same way it was for them. Not necessarily a case of like force like that. But in ancient days, the virgins, they were, when the king wanted a wife, he had the first pick. Hate to use those words, but that's how it was. Okay.
Well, that was going to be something that when the people asked for a king, what did Samuel tell the people?
Yes, the king would, yes.
What did Samuel think? He said, the king is going to take your women. That's what he told them. And then the reason why they had to send letters to all of his provinces, because remember, Israel is scattered. And just like we are today, if you're living in Brazil, what language do you speak? Portuguese. If you living in Cuba, you speak in Espanol. Yeah. So now that's why he had to send letters to all the provinces in all their different languages. You know, because we were scattered, you know, through the Babylonian Empire, and like Kamaniyah said, the Babylonians were taken over by the Persians. So now you have all of these different languages, and the kings were still doing those same things. He would take, and they had to fill that position. Because like Kamaniyah said, you cannot be a king without a queen. So they had to fill that position, and they had to fill it quick. And it took a year for them to fill that position.
4 years.
4
years total.
No, but when she was being, yeah.
That's there. Total Rabbi, any other questions? None? Okay. Hallelujah. One. Okay. This is the final question. If a question doesn't bounce out of it.
I'd like to apologize to both of women that I offended. I was bring a
male perspective,
my perspective, or what perspective?
brotherhood perspective.
Yes.
Ben Boaz perspective. Ben Boaz perspective.
Hallelujah. Okay. Hallelujah. Thank you the Most High for a beautiful Holy Shower day. It's a beautiful thing the way the theme of the day command how we saw it being done in a positive manner and a negative manner. Hallelujah. At this time I'd like to ask you to join me as we say the congregational prayer found in the page, 11th page in our Sidorim. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Sacrifices and the offerings are not found in our hands. Father of mercy, yet thy law standeth firm. Accept the words of our lips and the murmurs of our hearts. Receive our prayers in mercy and in favor. Grant us joy and gladness. Comfort thy people. Jehovah answer thee in the day of trouble. The name of the power of Israel set thee up on high. Draw us not away thou with the wicked, for our delight is in thy word. Let thy word heal us and cause us to prosper. Cause thy wisdom to blanket Israel. Let the visions of the righteous be our lot. Yea, even the dreams of thy redeemed, our good fortune. Draw us to the cords of love, and let our borders be truth. Into thy hand I commit my spirit. All praise unto thee, O Yah. We have thought of thy loving kindness. We rejoice in the house of Yah. Come behold the works of God and rejoice in the same. For he has rescued his people Israel. He has called forth his first of Yaakov. Before his righteousness is sent where calamity was. For such is our power forever and ever. He will be our God henceforth eternally. Sing praise aloud. Hallelujah. Shema. Shema. Israel.
Hallelujah.
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 Elohim Abraham Yitzchak Yisrael. Ataha Moshe, Asher Mashalta, Me'odenu Adata. Toda Rabbi Yehovah Elohim, the Kol Tzufka. Asher Tavtan. Asher He'erachta. Elahista Drutaze. Tibareko to na Yehovah. Tibareko Nishtalenu Lasso, Mato Be'eneka. Toda Rabba Yehovah. Rabba. Al Kayedu Asher Heche Itanu. Washer He'ezar Tanu. Be'odenu Ad Anta. Toda Elohim. Yehovah Elohim. L'chayenu. L'beitenu. L'kol mekomenu. Ma'akanu. Beitenu. Kol shatanu. Teilanu. Yom. Toda kiata, mefarnes unkal kelako. Me niet me mishpat. Me chaye bechesed uvrachamim rabim. Toda rabba, kiata, il atzum, vekibor. Vekilo shekata, et habri. Asher nishbata, bishmeka hagadol vahanora. Aval, Data et Shemka Aleinu Opa Behayamim Ha'ele Lehodu et Shem Godleka Wequadshika Welake La Asot et Turatka Tosif Na Yahol Lekal Kel Otan Lefarnes Otan Tosif Na Yahol Yom Imanu Lekol Mekwomenu Yom Yom Kashir Yots Anaklu Yotzim Webaim Lefeneka Kapirwanu Lekol Asher Asim Haraim Hashgagim Pishim Avoni Red Haraim Asher Asu Avotenu Bimehem Washer Anu Osim Big Lutaze Todia Na Yeho En Maase Ka Aleim Opa'am Kashir Asita La Avotenu Bimehem Betila Medo Tanu Et Tarbutenu Opa'am Ki Eilanu Busha Yeho Eilanu Busha Ki Lo Yadanu Et Lo Yodim Tarbutenu Abal Ataha'el Hayodea Et Hako Laose Et Hako Tasim Be Libotain, Kolak, Amat, La Asot, Tarbutain, La Amodka, La Avodka. Tekazek and Maase Yadenu, Hanesha Vim Laka, Hanisha Vim Laka, Hamishta Vim, La Shuv Laka, La Kaime Turatka. Todi alanu and maaseka hamaasim hagdolim hazro ahantuya asher ashir atasholea big beola yom tiktok na yeho enenu kashanu yekolim lirbo renak ledaa she'ata ra ha Elohim Shemana lekol hayaladim Asher Hein Sharim Shirim Laka Tiyeh Kol Amotenu Ime Imo Tiyeh Man
Atadikwi, Kashir Hasuabo Pain, be made. Yet Maruna Yo, Bahakish Kakin, Bahalta Ashray, Kashir Azamu, Mishakatu Sky. Todaraba Alkal, Eli, Hatuka, Matiye Imanu, Matishmerayuna. Tishlako Tanu, the Meko Menu, Shano, Uveta, Uhaslata, Namahan Shake Quashika. Todaraba Alkal, Yabaraka, Afiata Ose, don't know the thing. Matiye Imanu, Bahaltishka Kanu Opa. Now you hold, Kashi Chicago come, Kashi Azamu. Todaraba Alka Hamori, Akohani, Aom Dimaka, the Labe Ramka, Tiggy Imam, the Tish Marine, the Tabar King, now you hold, the Mahan Shane Quadrika, Tiggy Cole Has Quadi, the Queen of Baby, Tiggy Cole, Hanashi, Hanashi, Hayalati. Ayala gave Haki Wall Theme, the queer baby mayhem. T.A. Danya, the Chigale, Otan, the Karbaya, the Tardema, not here the queer butt. The Chiche, the Tiberek and Hop, Ayale, my big, the beat now let the whole of them on Shimka. Oh, Kabodi, Mahali, our shame down the car. The they are, the Eddie Go we ain't Eslakaba Hashemayim over Erisma, so tune the volume. Hallelujah! 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 Yaka! 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 Nehula Vora, Ata Yehovah, Ade Ad. Selah. Baruch Yehovah, Baruch Queer, Baruch Yehovah, Besorai, Baruch Yehovah, Be'eret, Baruch Yehovah, Belayla. Baruch Yehovah Yom Yom, Baruch Yehovah Sami, Yehovah Elohim Ba'Busha, Lissoa Nanu Reko Bevarim, Rahim, Shasinu Lefanecha Yom Yom, Veliotiman Ko Ha'Yadaze, Nama'an Shemka Yehovah, Elohei Abraham, Yitzchak Israel, Elohei Avotenu Me'eli, Lishmoa Bekolina, Imter Seotka, Nama'an Shemka Yehovah.
Hallelujah!
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 Yochai!
Yochai! Yochai! Yochai!
Sila. Shema.
Oh, Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Yahuwah
Hallelujah. I'd like to say the words of the blessing that the Most High has left on record. Remember, has not the power to bless, but Joseph also. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Yevareka Yehovah wa Yishmoreka. Ya ir Yehovah panayo eleka wikuneka. Yisa Yehovah panayo eleka. We yasem lecha shalom. Yehovah will bless thee and will keep thee. Yehovah will cause his face to shine upon thee and will be gracious unto thee. Yehovah will lift up his countenance upon thee and will give you peace. Hallelujah. The 150th Psalm on the
Please be seated for a few more moments. We thank you for your patience during these long days, brothers and sisters. We're going to try to get out of here as quickly as we can. Let me be the first to say to you, Motzai Shabbat Shalom Lakim.
Motzai Shabbat Shalom.
Greetings to you all.